Okay, that's enough of you, Mr. Zombie. Greetings, everybody, it's time for more movies! Yay, woo woo, woo woo, yeah, etc, etc. Yes, that's right, Saturday nights are movie nights, and coincidentally Silent Hill nights as well, if you saw the Silent Hill Dissector video, but yes, I just got done from watching another movie! What a night to behold. We've got our pizza, we got our Coke because they ran out of Pepsi, and it's generally a good night, because, I don't know, that kinda happens. Yes, it is not a Saturday night after all, actually, it's in fact a Monday night. Because I had work and it was shitty on Saturday and Sunday, so this is the only day I could go off and see the movie. But yeah, for those of you who probably read the title, yes, I went off and just got finished seeing Alien Covenant. Which is rather bizarre, because again, much like with the Ring movies, would you believe that this is probably the first Alien movie that I've seen in full? Yeah, my history with this series is rather limited, because again, the most I've ever seen of the actual Alien franchise, I guess, either sadly to some fans, or possibly not, depending upon how the reaction is, but yeah, the biggest exposure I've had to the Alien franchise so far is through Prometheus, which I saw back around the time when it came out, and even then I didn't even know it was a part of the Alien franchise until I started seeing some of the more obvious homages to xenomorphs. Anyway, so again, I did also see a bit of the first Alien movie, although again, it was like pretty much nothing more than a tiny sliver, considering the fact that I saw it back around the late 2000s over at a mate's place, but yeah, in a general sense, if you're going to be looking at this from a fan's perspective, again, I'm coming at this from somebody who's never seen the Alien movies, or at the very least not seen them enough to get a good grasp outside of what, general pop cultural osmosis has taught me, so yeah, if I don't talk about any, contrasting overall plot elements, from the other Alien movies, then I apologize in advance, but again, I guess this could also create, like, a little bit more of an interesting perspective, since I'm coming at this as the relative newbie here. Although I did see Prometheus, and there are a lot of elements in Alien Covenant that are directly tied to the movie Prometheus, so I guess I could probably comment on that. But in any case, so as per usual, let's get into the cons, the negatives, and the nice little touches that I enjoy. Also, I apologize if I occasionally look around, because the last time I did one of these videos, there were some scary teens, and possibly Sadako, who tried to kill me once. Yeah, the deepest lore in these Let's Talk Movies videos, but anyway, enough faffing about, let's get on with it. Now, the first thing that caught my attention, and again, something that I guess all of the Alien movies to some degree, I can give a general assumption of, or at the very least the first one is, or at the very least for Alien Covenant, is for the ambient soundtrack. Again, there are a lot, it's not all ambient, granted, again, there are, some of the more dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun orchestral pieces, although I'd argue that it's not quite as generic as some of the other movies that I've seen this year. But yeah, I fucking loved a lot of the ambient pieces in Alien Covenant. I mean, they created a great sense of foreboding, and again, like, maybe this is some stuff that's in the other movies as well that is carried over to this, mostly thanks to the fact that they have director Ridley Scott for this one. But again, this soundtrack had me really immersed, and maybe it's because of my love for ambient music, but I just got really invested in the atmosphere, and again, the soundtrack is just transcendent. Second point of praise I can honestly give the movie, and again, this might be a bit of a contrarian opinion to some other people, but I really love the use of gore in this movie. Again, I'm not the kind of person that goes, woohoo, yeehaw, gore! Well, okay, I am kind of like that, but it depends on the kind of horror movie, really. But yeah, the way they used gore in Alien Covenant, I felt it was visceral enough to shock the viewer, but at the same time, it wasn't excessive, which I feel that in a lot of horror movies that tend to emphasize gore, this movie did so in a way in which it was enough to disgust you, but at the same time it wasn't excessive to give the impression that, yes, we're overdoing it and we're desperately trying to disgust the viewer. Again, it was the right amount of gore, and again, I'm not really sure how I can adequately describe it, but I guess using it sparingly is probably the best way to describe it, which was rather effective, especially considering the fact that, again, whenever you saw a lot of the xenomorph attacks, and especially with a lot of the body parts they showed with, like, organs and entrails just splattered about everywhere, and, also with a lot of the more visceral scenes with the aliens being born. I should call them xenomorphs, but I'm probably just going to stick to calling them aliens. Yeah, I'll call them aliens if it's okay with you. Okay, enough Sonic Colors for one video. But yeah, aliens bursting out of the guy's back, the other one coming out of the dude's mouth. It's obviously the general chestburster, which has become a series staple. Again, fantastic stuff. Third point of praise, and again, I guess this is probably also going to be something of conflict among Alien fans, or so I assume. I'm not really too sure on what the fanbase truly thinks of Alien Covenant as of this moment, but for me, I really did enjoy the portrayal of the themes of, creationism and I guess evolution, now that I think about it. And this also does tie in with point 4, but I guess to focus more on the, thematics of the movie, it was a rather interesting exploration to see, how that developed, and especially with the character David from Prometheus in this movie, effectively playing God with the xenomorphs. Again, it was really interesting to see the psychology of his character and the way in which it tried to, I guess in the way in which it expressed the kind of God-like fatherly love towards the xenomorphs, and especially in one scene in particular where he, excuse me, where one of the xenomorphs was approaching him, and again he was doing it calmly, so understandingly as he approached it, and attempting to, I don't know, I guess kind of create a bond with the creature. I don't know, it was just so interesting to and again, it's such a small scene as well, but again, it is something that really does provide some interesting commentary, and again, it's not even delivered in necessarily the ham-fisted, well, say for one scene anyway, but it's not delivered in the same kind of ham-fisted way of, humanity sucks and they should be destroyed, the xenomorphs are king or whatever, but it was something that was delivered in a, I don't want to say an unbiased way, but that's the only word I can use for a lack of a better term. I don't know, I feel as if it explored its themes rather maturely. Just to cap things off, and again, this might be because of the fact that a lot of the movies I've seen this year could be seen as either rather juvenile or poorly handled to some, especially in the case of last time's Ghost in the Shell. But in a general sense, I really did like the exploration of the themes in this movie, and I guess it was probably attributed to the writing and everything, and especially since I feel that Alien Covenant probably had a better writer on hand than they did with Prometheus, and especially considering how Prometheus had some rather heavy-handed theming, so I'm kind of glad that, this movie is an improvement on that. So I suppose I can get into point 4 right now, which ties in kind of directly to the theme of the movie, which is David himself, which again is the symbolism of the David, the creation and all that kind of stuff. Again, having seen Prometheus before, and again, I don't necessarily think he harbors at the very least an obvious resentment towards humans, as, I hate them, they must be destroyed, but it's more so like a impassive pity, so to speak, because again, he mentioned his, father, so to speak, Wayland, which we saw in Prometheus as well, and, the way in which he died after meeting the engineers, and he viewed them with a sort of pity, which, again, it was really, I think it was subtly done, but it was really interesting to explore his psychology and the way in which he pitied the human race for essentially being the father of, mechanical beings such as him, and the way in which that kind of developed as he played God with the xenomorphs, as I mentioned earlier, and just the way in which he sought to have their culture thrive, and especially the twist ending of the movie, which, again, did come as a bit of a surprise to me, actually. I probably won't spoil it here, since, again, people haven't seen the movie, and people go, you can't spoil things! I guess the way in which his character developed from Prometheus to this movie is a bit more of a natural evolution, especially when you consider the fact that, his treatment of the humans, and again, I guess the way he also tended to interpret a lot of human behaviors, like, emotions and everything, especially when you had, the other robotic character with Walter to compare and contrast, between the two, because again, Walter was the more robotic counterpart, which we got inklings of with David in Prometheus, albeit in Prometheus, David was a little bit more on the ambiguous, sinister side, for the lack of a better phrase. But again, the compare and contrast kind of thing was a fantastic way of showcasing how far gone he was from where he was in Prometheus, which is, yeah. I suppose in a general sense, the way in which I could describe David's character, I suppose I could say it was really well handled, and it seemed to have a nice balance between, a sense of logical understanding and the way in which a robot would interpret, human behaviors and, I guess the natural rate of evolution and creationism and all that kind of stuff, mixed in with a little bit more of the macabre, as, again, spoiling a little bit of the movie here, but Elizabeth Shaw, who was the main protagonist of the last movie, was completely cultivated from her organs and everything, which again is a rather visceral use of gore, but again, it was so effective, and especially considering a lot of, you know, David's referrals to Mother, and again, the fact that he was breeding xenomorphs kind of leads to some, well, rather deadly implications, but nonetheless, again, it was some really, really fantastic stuff with David's character, so again, fantastic. Fourth, I don't know, another point of praise I could give to the movie was actually its set design. Again, a bit of a staple of the Alien franchise, especially given the reputation of H.R. Geiger. But again, I really did love the set design of this movie, definitely a lot more than I enjoyed Prometheus's more modern sci-fi look. I mean, this movie tended to have a little bit more of a... Oh, hang on a sec, there is someone there. Okay, sorry about that, bit of an interruption with... some police cars that just happened to be driving by the area and found me rather suspicious, but anyway, no need to harp on about some scary elements like that. Yes, cons for the movie. Decepticons. Yeah, Megatron was an alien covenant. Apparently he wanted to kill the Xenomorphs to kill Optimus Prime. No, I'm just fucking bullshitting about that. Cons for the movie. Didn't really have many cons for the movie now that I think about it. Again, I think I was mostly swept up in the atmosphere, which I guess... kind of distracted from all that. And again, I'm not necessarily sure whether or not this, you know, contradicts or retcons anything from previous Alien movies. But again, with me coming at this as the relative newbie of the series, I guess a lot of the cons that longtime fans might see in this movie might not be applicable to me. So, again, for what little cons that I do have with the movie, are mostly just minor nitpicks, really. The first immediate one that came to my mind just as the movie was coming to a close was the sequel betting. And again, this is mostly due with the ending that I can't necessarily spoil. But if I can be vague and a little bit more descriptive of my feelings about it, again, it sounds like Ridley Scott or whoever the hell's behind these sequels does have a story to tell, even though I think it probably borrows a few more elements from Prometheus as a starting point than it does from the Alien series. I'm not necessarily sure how this is going to go or how future sequels are going to go. I mean, granted, I'm going to go off and see them because, again, I did find this movie pretty enjoyable so far, so again, interested to see where it goes, but not necessarily a fan of the fact that it is kind of baiting up for a sequel. Second negative con is, I suppose, kind of the forgettable extras, and again, I'm not necessarily sure if this is just me or anything, or if I wasn't paying attention or anything, but I couldn't really remember a lot of the names of the movie, or even the main heroine of the movie. I can't even mind her name right now, which is probably part of the reason why it's fucking pathetic that I can't remember them. Like, I mean, the most characters I remember is David, but that's because I watched Prometheus. Tennessee, who was like one of the ship's pilots, and again, he had a goofy name and he wore a cowboy hat, so that's probably why I remember him. His wife, Farrah, I believe. I think that might be her name. And I only remember her because she had one of the more memorable sequences where she trapped the xenomorph growing out of the dude's back, locking another chick inside the medical bay. Before the xenomorph broke out, then the door lock just completely crushed her ankle. And yeah, she ended up, destroying the ship and being completely immolated in flames. It's probably why I remember the character, actually, because that sequence is fucking cool. But yeah, I mean, I guess most of the other characters I couldn't really remember, because, I mean, the only other ones I remember was a medical chick who was, like, on the spaceship with Tennessee, and, black guy, I don't know this fucking name. The only other thing I really remember about those two characters was that they had a very sexy shower scene that was interrupted by a pervy xenomorph. I don't know, I mean, that was just one of the few nitpicks that I have with the movie, but again, that could probably just be a problem exclusive to me rather than anything else. So, yeah, one flaw, I guess. Oh, one last flaw that I finally fucking remembered, and that's just because, again, the one thing that I wasn't necessarily too sure on is really the appearance of, I think, the engineers. Again, they didn't quite look as tall as they did in Prometheus, or it might be just the, civilization having a different design to the actual spacesuits that were displayed in the original Alien and in Prometheus. Again, I'm not necessarily too sure on that, but they seem to just have a bit of a one-off cameo where, again, they were there to show off their civilization, then David unleashed, the xenomorph parasite, which was there to cleanse them of their civilization, which Shaw and David were heading to at the end of Prometheus. And again, I'm not sure whether or not this was meant to be a showcase of the theme of, this movie with, creationism and how the evolution of the species happens as, the older variant dies, but the appearance of the engineers in this movie just seemed to be a little bit wasted in the sense that it was just there to showcase a scene which was there to show, you know, the biblical symbolism. Watch as the locust pests kill all the people, praise him, the art, and all that kind of crap, which, again, considering how built up they were with Prometheus, kind of felt like a bit of a waste, especially considering the fact that they seem like nothing more than just another civilization, which again, I suppose was there to tie in with the whole idea of, oh yeah, we're one bit of the species evolving out of another. But even then, like, I mean, especially considering how much build-up we had over Prometheus, it just seemed like a bit of a waste of their characters, which again, probably stems from the fact that, again, this movie seems to take more from Prometheus, because otherwise I don't think I'd really be bitching so much, if I even am at all, so to speak, but it was just a little niggle, but one that bothered me considering the fact that, again, you spend the whole of Prometheus going, oh, the engineers, they created humanity, man, they are, like, the powerful thing, even though in that movie they wanted to destroy humanity for no apparent reason, seemingly. But I don't know, there was just something a little bit wasteful about their appearance. I suppose with nothing else really left to say, general thoughts on the movie, I liked Alien Covenant. I really do want to check out the other movies in the Alien series, because again, it looks really interesting, and it's something that I probably should have checked out a lot sooner than I did. And, like, I mean, I just love the use of gore. I love the fact that it seemed to have a bit more of an emphasis on horror, rather than the looks of some of the more action-packed sequels, and again, I wouldn't really know, I haven't really seen them, but again, I did like the use of horror in this, love the, you know, sparing usage of gore, alongside, you know, some of the elements that it did take from Prometheus, and I'd say improved upon in some aspects. And with a lot of the problems I had with this movie, they were mostly just minor nitpicks and stuff that I was probably ignorant to because I'd never seen the original Alien movie, but again, overall, I enjoyed this movie. In fact, I'd say, out of all the movies I'd seen, again, if it's not Logan that's going to take my top pick for Movie of the Year, I'd say it's probably this movie. This movie in a running contendership with, I don't know, I guess either Logan or I suppose Triple X, The Return of Xander Cage, for as juvenile as that might sound to some, but I really did enjoy the action in that movie. But, okay, I'm getting off topic, and I've got a pizza to eat. So, on that note, I'm Skully, keep it new metal, and next time on Let's Talk Movies, again, if it's not Sword Art Online Ordinal Scale, which I should get around to at some stage, I'll probably be doing another one of these videos on Transformers: The Last Knight. Catch you later.